Guys, I am filming on a weekday. I had work today. This feels very strange, a little bit uncomfortable, but let's get into my November wrap up. So I read a lot this month. More than I think I would have assumed I would have read. I had a November and December TBR already set out, but I well and truly exceeded the November TBR and just ended up adding random shit to my November TBR. So I read quite a few books. I'm going to go through them all with you. I'm actually going to start with what I read most recently and then work my way back. So let's get into it. So the most recent book I finished was We Love You Bunny by Mona Awad. And this book was, first of all, so much longer than it looks. This was a 20-hour audiobook. This book does not look long or intimidating at all. Actually, reading it was a little bit intimidating. So this is a prequel, sequel, and standalone companion to Bunny, and somehow all of those things work. I didn't think it was going to be possible for it to fit all those categories. It definitely does. This book takes place, I think, 2 years after all the characters from Bunny have graduated, and the bunnies, the 4 culty witchy girls, end up kidnapping Samantha because she has published a book. Presumably she's published the book Bunny, and they don't really like how they've been depicted in Samantha's book, so they kidnap her and they're like, hey babe, we're actually going to tell you what really happened. We're going to tell you our side of the story and why your book is completely incorrect, and this is what's happened. So we get a couple of chapters from each of the bunnies' POVs explaining how they came to be part of the bunnies. That was very interesting. I liked finding out how the little group was formed. But then this book took a very strange direction, and it actually followed the POV. I hope this isn't a spoiler. Is it a spoiler? It might be a bit of a minor spoiler. We actually follow the POV of the first bunny that they turned into a boy. And that took up a majority of the plot, a majority of the book, I should say. And because he has essentially just been created, it was very Frankenstein. Now, it does say it on the back of the book that this is Frankenstein meets Heathers. I didn't really believe that, but it really, really was so reminiscent of Frankenstein, of a creature experiencing everything for the first time, having a really difficult but unbreakable connection with their creator. It was very interesting. The only thing I will say is I definitely wanted more Samantha in this. She was our main character in the first book, and we don't get her perspective or her point of view at all in this book. It is us as the reader taking information in as if we were Samantha, but obviously we're not then seeing Samantha's reaction to these things apart from what the bunnies are saying. I really wanted to get into Samantha's head for the hours that she is sitting there being talked at by the bunnies. I wanted to know what she's thinking, what she's planning, what she's going through. And then there was the ending, and the ending was very fun, but I have a little theory which doesn't make any sense. My theory doesn't make any sense, but I think it's a cute little way to tie up the book if my theory is correct. Another thing I enjoyed about this is that it does give confirmation to some of the theories about the first book. It's really hard to talk about this book without being spoilery. I will say, if you are interested in reading this book and you also are interested in Bunny, just read Bunny first. I think if you read this book and then read Bunny, it wouldn't work as well as reading them chronologically, if that makes sense. But I did really enjoy this. The next book we're going to talk about is Lying in Wait, and this was a book I read for my new to me November prompt because I've never read from this author before. This book opens with a married couple, man and wife, and the man, the husband, is strangling a woman in the car, strangling her, and the wife comes over, sees that he's about to kill this other woman, and she's like, this is taking too long, and whacks her in the back of the head, and she finishes the job. So essentially together they have killed this woman. This book follows them trying to cover up this murder, but also how this murder impacts their son and the rest of his life. Now, I think the perspectives in this book are very interesting. I think it was an interesting book. I was intrigued the whole way through, but it was just such an unsatisfying ending. This is definitely not a thriller where, justice prevails. It is not that type of book. And sometimes that really works for me. Sometimes I love a thriller or a horror where the good guy finishes last, and shit's just shit. This was not one of those books. I just didn't really like the ending. And the very last chapter, it is a 1-page chapter, just felt so out of place. Like, genuinely, I would have given this probably a 4, and then the last 20 pages happened and I dropped it down to a 2.5. Like, that ending made this book completely average for me. I will still pick up the other book by this author I own, which is Strange Sally Diamond. Did you see that fly? But I don't know. I don't think I'm going to, like, seek out this author's other books. Okay, let's discuss Everything for You by Chloe Lees. This is the 5th book in the Bergman Brothers series. This book follows Oliver and his, like, teammate slash co-captain, Gavin. Gavin is very much grumpy, doesn't want to get close to anyone because he's never really been close to anyone and just wants to keep himself protected. And then there's Oliver, who used to be, like, the firecracker, like, the life of the party, went through a heartbreak, and he's kind of lost some of his spice, but his mutual dislike of Gavin reignites that spark in Oliver. These two, they were just really, really cute. Like I said, this is the 5th book in the Bergman Brothers series. I'm still enjoying this series. I have got 2 books to go, but I just like this series. This series has got amazing rep for all sorts of medical issues, disorders, mental and physical, and I just, especially because Oliver's the representation we get with Oliver is his anxiety. Relatable, loved it. And then with Gavin we get his physical limitations because he's got, like, some injuries. And I just think that the rep is done really well in these books. Again, I cannot speak because I do not suffer from everything that's being represented, but it's nice to see disabilities, mental and otherwise, being, I guess, casually put into these romance books and it not being a massive thing. Like, every single one of the books in this series has got a character that is suffering with something or trying to get over something, and it's nice that it's just something that Chloe Lees is doing, like, and it's not like a big thing. She's not making it a big thing of, like, this is my series where each different character. It's just something she's doing, and it's lovely to read about. Then we have The Snowman by Jo Nesbø. Can we just discuss the fact that I've had this book on my TBR for like 3 or 4 years and was like, oh no, it's too long for a thriller. Why was I sleeping on this book, guys? This book, so it is, I think, the 4th, 5th, 6th. This is a book in a series. I don't know what number book it is, but this is a book in a series following a detective named Harry Hole. This is also translated from Norwegian, which I do not speak, but this does read really well as a standalone. So this follows Harry, our detective, trying to catch a serial killer who kidnaps and essentially murders women, but always leaves a snowman where the woman has been taken from. So the snowman is like his calling card. This killer is also kind of playing a little game with Harry, like very much wants Harry to try and catch him and fail. And it was just really interesting. I think a lot of the crime scenes in this reminded me of Seven for some reason, the movie. I don't know what else to say about this book except, like, it is good, like, cold season, fun, thriller times. Lots of murder. Really enjoyed it. Quite twisty. Although I did guess, like, right from the start, I said to myself, something is really sus with these 2 characters. And I was right on both accounts. I read too many thrillers. But I would still recommend this book. I enjoyed it. Then we're going to discuss a little novella. It's like a 90-page... No, not even. I think the ebook was 90 pages, but it had another story in it. So it's like a 30-page short story. It's called Dracula's Baby Girl. And it does not have good ratings on Goodreads. However, if you're going to throw the word Dracula on a book title, I'm going to read it. And it wasn't the worst thing I've ever read. It actually wasn't even the worst thing I read this month. This is just a quick little short story about a girl whose best friend has just been murdered. And she's kind of struggling because she obviously really loved her best friend, but in a way that is so similar with a lot of females. She also kind of hated her best friend. And at her best friend's funeral, she's having a really difficult time because her boyfriend is there and her boyfriend hated her best friend. So she's kind of struggling. And then she meets this guy named Drake. And he basically introduces himself and says, yeah, I knew the deceased. Like, we went out on a couple of dates. And she did mention you. I'm really sorry for your loss. that's all I'm going to say, because like it is a short story, so how much more can I tell you? But let me just say that this is the most basic bitch short story, and I kind of loved it. It was just campy. It was very much like Twihard grows up and instead of vying for Edward Cullen wants to jump into bed with Dracula. It was very fun, very easy to read. I did enjoy it. I will not be rereading it ever again. Then we can talk about 9 Month Contract by Amy Dawes. This is the first book in the Mountain Matchmaker series, or Mountain Man Matchmaker series. I fucking sped through this book. This book follows our mountain man here. I don't remember his name. Wyatt. Yes, Wyatt. This book follows Wyatt. Wyatt just wants to be a dad. That is literally all he wants. He's not in a relationship. He doesn't think he'd be a great husband. He just wants to be a father. Like, that's kind of his goal. And he is trying to go through IVF with a surrogate, but the agency he's working with is kind of like not really working with him. And then we've got Trista, who for financial reasons wants to be a surrogate. She really needs money to jumpstart her career in animal rescue. But the same agency is like, babe, you're too fat to be a surrogate. Like, we're not going to accept you. And lo and behold, these two end up signing this 9-month contract where Trista will carry Wyatt's biological baby to term. Once the baby is born, she will give the baby to Wyatt. She'll get her paycheck and be on her merry way. Obviously, these two people are going to be living in close quarters, and is Wyatt going to treat the woman carrying his child like shit? No, he's going to take care of her and be gentle and loving and considerate. And I love this book, and there are 2 more books so far out in this series. I will be reading them in December, just so you know, because it was really, really good. Now let's discuss Love Letters to a Serial Killer by Tasha Coreal. This is the same author who wrote Dracula's Baby Girl. Thankfully, this one was actually a lot better. Not quite as campy, a little bit more serious. Now, I picked this up just because the title, to me, is hilarious. Love Letters to a Serial Killer. Like, is this going to be a romance or a thriller? The answer is kind of both. This book follows Hannah. Hannah is kind of just struggling through life. Nothing is really, like, is her passion. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's got a shitty job that she doesn't really like. She's pining over this ex-boyfriend who never loved her, obviously. She doesn't have many friends. She's not really close to the family. And then one day, a woman's body is found in a ravine. And then another woman's body is found in the same ravine. And Hannah is like, obviously there's a serial killer. Let's get justice for these women. She petitions so hard to find the killer for these women on social media, making posts on Instagram, that sort of thing. And then the murderer is found. The alleged murderer is found. And she just sees a video of him being arrested. And she thinks, fuck this piece of shit. I'm going to write him a letter. So she initially writes the accused murderer, William. Is that his name? Yes. She writes him a letter being like, fuck you, you fucking piece of shit. Like, you are the reason I'm never going to be able to trust if the man I'm dating loves me or wants to kill me. So, fuck you, and hope you have a really shit life. And hope you get what's coming to you, basically. And then William writes back, and he's not angry with her letter. In fact, he's very gentle and very nice. And he's like, you know, I understand why you feel that way. Women really, you know, deal with a lot of shit in our society. I wish that I could make all women feel safe. I apologize for the things I've done that have affected women. And he's actually very nice. And they begin this pen pal relationship while William is put on trial. There are a lot of thriller aspects to this. I would also maybe argue that there is a little bit of romance, like maybe a bit of a love story. For me, it didn't quite hit. Like, I would not describe this as a love story or as a romance, and maybe some people would, but I kind of read into it a little bit deeper, and unfortunately, because I was reading it through a different lens, I didn't really get the romance or the love story in this. It was a little bit predictable, but I actually did enjoy this. I could relate to Hannah on so many levels of being like, not that I'm in love with any serial killers, FYI, but, you know, she's kind of like justifying to herself, like, yeah, he may be a serial killer, but I mean, he only killed 4 women. He it's not like he was killing like dozens at a time, and like, you know, he's probably not that bad. And she's just like justifying the craziest shit to herself. And like, as someone who constantly justifies and compartmentalizes things in my head, I relate to Hannah so much. There is another book by this author. I think it's called Matchmaking for Psychopaths. I'm so desperate to read it. So I enjoyed this book. It wasn't amazing. It was like a 3.5 star, but I enjoyed it on a different level than like a typical romance, I guess you could say. Next, we have got Heartstrings by Ivy Fairbanks. This is the sequel to Morbidly Yours, which I read earlier this year. This book was, again, just like a light, fun second chance romance, and I really, really enjoyed it. We have got, what's her name? Lo, who is a nurse and really wants to become qualified, and then we have got Aiden, and these two, prior to the book starting, were dating. Aiden was then offered basically a chance at a music career, and he couldn't turn it down, so he leaves Ireland and moves to England, and he also leaves Lo behind. This follows them a couple of years after the fact, when they are both going to be in a wedding together, and forced proximity and the way that these two just melted back together. This book I thought was going to annoy me because you don't ever actually see them in a relationship. You only see them right after the breakup, and then a couple of years later. You don't see them initially dating, and I thought that was going to bug me, but it didn't, because as soon as these characters interact and become friendly again, like, you can see their relationship. We don't need it explained. It was really, really good. I would highly recommend this. I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as Morbidly Yours, but I definitely did. Just a very cute, satisfying, sweet romance. Next, we have 13 by Steve Kavanaugh. I own 3 Steve Kavanaugh books, right? And I think I've owned this book, and then I unhauled it, and then I repurchased it, but I'm so glad I did. This book, like, this is the elevator pitch for this book, right? There is a murder trial happening, except the murderer is not on trial. He is on the jury. He is watching a trial of his murders, but someone else being blamed for them. It is such a good concept. It was so interesting. You are in the head of the serial killer for half the book. The rest of the book, you are in Eddie Flynn's head, and Eddie Flynn is such an interesting character, such a good detective. I love this book. This is, again, like the 4th book in the Eddie Flynn series. Guess what? You do not need to read all the other books. I read this as my first Eddie Flynn book, and this is book 4. Did not affect me whatsoever. In fact, I'm actually reading the 5th or 6th book in this series now. You don't need to read the whole series. I mean, I would recommend this book. I think you should just read it. I had so much fun with this book. A little bit twisty, and I just enjoyed it. And I really, really like a courtroom thriller. I didn't think I would, because it's just never really appealed to me to just be in a courtroom setting and read about characters giving testimonies, but some of that happened in 13, and I just really enjoyed it. I actually thought it was a really, really good time. Shall we talk about one of my biggest disappointments of the month? Let's. Not in Love by Ellie Hazelwood. I'm actually really sad. I don't think I've ever given an Ellie Hazelwood less than a 4.5. I gave this a 3. I think that this is like almost a completely average romance. The only thing that made it slightly above average is that I just really enjoy Ellie Hazelwood's writing style, but I just didn't love this book. And I know that there's like a little author's note at the start where Ellie Hazelwood says that these characters, you know, are very physical. That's how they show affection. Like, they're very like sexually involved compared to her earlier books. But even so, I've read books that are like 95% smut where I believe the chemistry between the characters more than I did in this book. Basically, girl meets boy, they're about to hook up, they don't, and then the next day the girl goes to work and she realizes that the guy is basically going to take over her company, and she assumes it's because he's like money hungry and just wants to destroy the company she works at. So there's like a little bit of a conflict of interest there, because they're both really interested in each other, but are kind of in this situation at work where they really shouldn't be interested in each other. And this just didn't, it just didn't hit. This book, first of all, for me, it just felt so long. I don't think it's any longer than any other Ellie Hazelwood book, but this book dragged on. I didn't really like, what's her name? Rue. I didn't really like Rue. I know that Eli thought she was like quirky and charming, but I thought that she was just really rude and quite aloof and cold. Like, if I had met Rue in real life, I would be like, oh, she's not my kind of person. So it was really difficult to read a whole book about her where this seemingly like perfect guy is fawning over her. I didn't really get it. It didn't make sense to me. I'm gonna keep it. Like I said, it's, you know, slightly better than average. Like, I did enjoy other aspects of this book, but the fact that one of the 2 main characters just didn't vibe well with me was very, very strange for Ellie Hazelwood. So I'm hoping that when I continue through the rest of her backlog, that I do not experience this again, because this was a very, very disappointing book, and I can't believe it. I can't believe that Ali Hazelwood disappointed me. It's crazy talk. Next, I've got a really fun thriller. It is called The Butcher by Jennifer Hillier. I would almost argue that this is a horror, not so much a thriller. This book is a little bit twisty, a little bit confusing. Basically, we are following a couple of POVs. We are following, I think his name's Edward. Edward is, or was, the chief of police, and back in the 80s, he caught the serial killer of the time called the Butcher. He tracked down the Butcher, shot the Butcher is dead, the Butcher has been caught. Everyone is singing Edward's praises for decades to come. We're also following his grandson, Matt. Matt has just moved into Eddie's house because Eddie's moved to a retirement village. And then we are following Matt's girlfriend, Sam, whose mother was killed. And she's always assumed, like Sam discovers, or thinks that she's discovered, her mother was actually killed by the Butcher, which isn't possible because her mother was killed like 2 or 3 years after the Butcher was killed, which means either the Butcher was never caught or her mom wasn't actually killed by the Butcher and was killed by a copycat killer. And this book was so good. There are no twists in this book. I think it's all pretty straightforward. It's all, like, from the second chapter, you kind of know exactly where the book is going to go, but it was a delicious journey. I had so much fun with this book, and, like, it was one of those endings, unlike what I was talking about earlier. Which book was it? Lying in Wait. Unlike Lying in Wait, where it was just a really unsatisfying, unhappy, just, like, not good ending, this was the satisfying, like, tick, tick, tick ending that I was hoping for. I highly recommend. I really enjoyed this book, and this was my first Jennifer Hillier. I've got, like, 2 or 3 other books by her on my shelves. I need to get to them, like, yesterday, you know? Next, I don't even want to talk about this book for too long. It's called Artemis Made Me Do It by Trista Mattia. This is allegedly it's a poetry collection. It's like an Instagram poetry collection. Like, aesthetically, it is a very beautiful book, right? But, like, it is so shallow. Like, every poem in this book is so fucking shallow. I only bought this because it was like $1.30 on Amazon Returns, so I was like, oh, let's give it a shot. I like Greek mythology. The word Artemis is in the title. Yeah, it wasn't the best, guys. I'll be honest. I think I gave it a 1 star. But you know what is so fun? I can actually now just tear this book the fuck up and use it in my junk journal. Like, the illustrations, sentences that maybe are a little bit nice. So yeah, I think this was a 1 star. I wouldn't recommend anyone waste their money on this. I wouldn't recommend anyone waste their time on this. I didn't really enjoy my time with this, but I am very excited, like I said, to rip these pages out and use them in my junk journal. That's basically all I would say this book is good for. Sorry if it sounds harsh. Then we have Fake Skating by Lynn Painter. This is her newest YA release. And I'm going to be so real, guys. I've read so many Lynn Painter books this year that they're all kind of blurring together in my mind. I do know that this is about, I remember, this is about childhood best friends that are kind of separated by circumstance. Both lose communication with each other and blame the other one for it. And then are reunited as teenagers. So what's her name? Danny moves back to Alex's hometown. And because they were childhood best friends, everyone's like, oh, you guys should show each other, like, you know, hang out at school and be there for each other. So Alec is very, very much cocky at the start. Like, he is so bitter. Like, he fucking hates Danny, but he kind of sees some vulnerable sides of her. He sees that she's kind of struggling being back in this town, and he kind of does take a bit of pity on her. They do end up talking. They kind of strike up a very fragile friendship, and they begin fake dating because that's what happens in every single fucking Lynn Painter book. Lo and behold, I loved this. Like, I gave it 4.5 or 5 stars. This was a really great book. I just need Lynn Painter to stop doing the fake dating thing in every single book, because like I said, it is starting to make every single one of her books just blur into a blob of Lynn Painter in my mind. So come this time next year, I will have no idea what this book was about, but I still really enjoyed it. I would highly recommend it, especially if you've never read a Lynn Painter. Read this book. It was really enjoyable. She's one of the only authors whose YA books I still read. So if that doesn't say how good she is, I don't know what will. Next, I read The Haunting of Alejandra by Vic Castro. Now, this was specifically for a Goodreads achievement, but I've had this on my TBR for a while now, and this was very, very interesting. On the surface, we are following a woman named Alejandra, as if I needed to look at the back of the book to try and remember the main character's name, like it's not on the cover. We are following Alejandra, and Alejandra is kind of just feeling run down. Like, she loves her children, but she's kind of sick of just being mother. And she really, really wants to love her husband, but she's kind of sick of just being his wife. And she is a stay-at-home mom, and she just doesn't feel like she has anything for herself. She's a little bit depressed, and that is made all the more worse when she starts seeing a figure that basically encourages her to kill herself. A like ghostly, ominous figure, ethereal figure that basically says like, no, do it, kill yourself. No one loves you. No one needs you. Do it. End your life. So she ends up asking a therapist for help. This therapist is also quite spiritual, and we find out that Alejandra is essentially being haunted. Through this book, we are also following Alejandra's family tree or ancestry, like centuries back, to see how this figure has appeared in all these different women's lives in this family tree, in this bloodline, and essentially is trying to collect them all, like collect all these women's souls. It was very interesting, very cool. I typically don't like anything that's remotely historical, but I was very intrigued by seeing all these generations of women and how they dealt with this haunting, with this spirit that is trying to collect all their souls. It was a very, very cool book. I don't know if I would necessarily reread it, but it's such a, I'd call it a very unique reading experience, so I'm going to keep it. I would recommend it if you like ghost stories, or if you like things that are a little bit like non-conclusive. Like, I will say the ending of this book was a little bit fucking bizarre. Like, there's a whole bathtub scene where I was like, my brain is not big enough to comprehend, but I did enjoy this for the most part, so I would recommend. Then I also read The Berry Pickers. This was, again, just for a Goodreads achievement. I think it was for Native American voices. And I wish I could say that I liked this book. I truly, truly didn't. It felt like there was something missing. So this book follows a Native American family, and I don't remember how many siblings there are. There's like 5 or 6 siblings. And one day, the youngest daughter goes missing. She disappears. And the family desperately tries to find her, but she's like fucking gone. There's like not a trace of her. She is absolutely gone. And then the very next chapter is following the POV of that girl who's gone missing. And she's essentially been kidnapped by a white family. A white family who can't have kids, doesn't want to go through or can't go through the adoption process for whatever reason. So the wife saw a little native girl sitting there by herself and kidnapped her and is raising her as her own. And this book is very much following I don't know if he's the oldest brother, but it's following one of the brothers from the family and how his sister's disappearance has literally affected every single step of his life. And then we're also following the sister in question being raised as a white girl and having all these questions about her skin color and being mistaken for a Native American by strangers and having to explain that, like, no, she's just tan because her grandfather was Italian. And there were some very emotional moments in this book. Like, I did think the ending was, it was sad, and it was definitely bittersweet. It was a sweet, sad, somber, but hopeful kind of ending. The way I'm talking about this book, you'd think it is a really, really amazing book. It just, for me, obviously, what I'm telling you guys is how this is, and I don't know much about Native Americans or American history. Like, I'm Australian, I don't actually care that much about American history. Like, Australia's got enough problems. But for a book that is essentially about white people stealing a Native child because they feel like they can just do that, like, there could have been so much more said about that. Instead, I just felt like the book didn't make its point, I guess you could say. And I wouldn't recommend it, but if it sounds interesting to you, go right ahead. Let's next discuss My Sister the Serial Killer. So this was a reread for me. The first time I read this book, I gave it 3 stars. I didn't really get it. It wasn't really what I expected it to be. Now, on this reread, knowing what I was going into, holy fuck, this book is fun. This book is like tongue-in-cheek, like equal parts fucking hilarious and just so sad. So we are following these 2 sisters. We've got like the pretty, attractive, charismatic one, and then we've got her sister, our main character, who is a nurse and who is not as pretty, but is definitely more book smart. And the pretty sister every now and then calls her other sister, and she's like, hey, my boyfriend attacked me, I had to kill him. And main character Cardi. Cardi is constantly cleaning up these murders. I think by the time the book starts, there's already been 3 murders where her sister is like, oh, he attacked me. I had no choice. And Cardi is kind of like a little bit over it, but she loves her sister. She's going to cover for her sister until her sister sets her sights on the doctor at Cardi's work that she's in love with. And she thinks, I mean, I love him. I'm okay if my sister wants to date him, wants to be with him. But if she kills the man I love, what the fuck am I going to do? It is such a good book. It is so short, quick. It's told through vignettes. So, like, you know, the whole one more chapter thing. If you want to read one more chapter, you'll only be reading the book for an extra 2 minutes. I thought it's just such a good book. I'm so glad that I reread this book because I knew that there was the capacity for me to love it. I hadn't tapped into that capacity back in the day. But such a good book. So at this point in the video, I'm like, why did I go through these books in reverse order? Like, I should have started with what I started the month with, because I mentioned earlier the 5th book in the Bergman Brothers series. Now we need to talk about the 4th and the 3rd books. So the 3rd book is Ever After Always, and the 4th book is With You Forever. Now, this book follows a married couple who are basically on the brink of getting a divorce before they decide they need to go counseling, they need to get their shit together. I don't really like stories about a already existing married couple trying to find their love again. That's what this book was about. It was still fine. I still enjoyed it. I gave it like 4 stars. But as far as a romance trope goes, I don't really love like the second chance at marriage thing. So it was fine. Didn't love it. It was good, but it wasn't my favorite. But then we followed it with You Forever, and this is it a spoiler if I tell you guys? Yes, it is. This has one of my favorite tropes. That's all I'm going to say. We followed Axel. Axel is like the older, more serious. I think he's the oldest, actually. Is Axel the oldest? I couldn't tell you. But Axel is like the very serious, somber, private Bergman brother. And this book was so cute because this little firecracker, is it Ronnie? No, Rooney. Rooney just pulls all the softness out of him. I really love these books, guys. Like, I'm gonna do a Bergman Brothers deep dive once I finish the series. I think maybe that's what I should do. But either way, read those, love them. I have 2 more books in the series. I said that earlier. I'm gonna try and finish the series in January, I think. Anyway, a couple more books, guys. We have got How You Doing by Jacqueline Hyde. This is the 2nd book in the Monster Bay series, so this is a sequel to Your Coffin or Mine, which I read last month. Unfortunately, I didn't love this as much as Your Coffin or Mine. I'm not sure if it's because it had like a werewolf shapeshifter as opposed to a vampire. I don't know if it's just because he was such a fucking prick. This follows the manager, I guess, of the hotel from the 1st book. And like I said, he is a werewolf shapeshifter. You meet him in the 1st book. He's also a prick in the 1st book. And then you follow his human employee who's the castle chef. And the reason I had such an issue with this book, especially at the start, is that he kind of like threatens her financially. Like, definitely is financially abusing a staff member. And then later on he's like, oh, I didn't realize you were taking that seriously. Like, I wasn't actually going to dock your pay. I wasn't actually going to withhold thousands of dollars from you. Like, how the fuck would she know that? You're literally her employer. Like, if my employer said to me, sorry, but you're not getting the $10,000 we promised you, I would be fucking furious. And instead, she's supposed to forgive it because he's hot? I don't think so. That annoyed me. There was also, like, their 3rd act breakup is because of her blood. Like, he doesn't like who she's descended from, and he gets mad at her for not telling him, even though she didn't realize it was a big deal. It was just a messy fucking relationship. I've got the 3rd book in this series, but I'm going to be honest, I'm really hesitant and scared to start the 3rd book in this series because I did not really like this book. So, we'll see. I had intended to read the 3rd book in the series before the end of the year, but like I said, I don't really want to. If I do, you will see it in next month's wrap-up, but who's to fucking know? Then I read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This is not a reread. This is the first time I've read this book. 4.5 stars. One of the better Taylor Jenkins Reid books I have read in recent history. I really enjoyed this. I think everyone and their mother knows what this book is about, but if you don't, this is kind of a fictional memoir, I guess you could say, following the life of Evelyn Hugo and the 7 husbands she had throughout her life. And we are following a reporter who is recording Evelyn's story to publish into a book. Now, I will say, what's the reporter's name? Monique. I don't think Monique needed to have any actual ties to Evelyn Hugo. The fact that she did was like, yeah, okay, cool. But I just feel like Monique should have been there solely as a vehicle for the story. And her having a personal connection to Evelyn was a bit of a weird choice. I didn't love that aspect, but for the most part, I did really enjoy this book. It was very fun to read. I don't really like historicals, but this was it. An ultimate book, guys, is Any Man by Amber Tamblyn. This is a reread for me. I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but I rated this book higher the second time around than the first time around. It was very much like My Sister the Serial Killer. The first time I read it, I don't think I really knew what I was getting into, and it didn't necessarily disappoint me. It just wasn't what I expected. This time around, I knew what I was getting into. This book hit, honestly, harder the second time around because I thought I was ready for it all. And then things got mentioned that I'd forgotten about, and they hit me twice as fucking hard. This book follows a female rapist, basically, who goes by the name of Maud. And you are, as the reader, reading these different men's accounts of essentially the aftermath of their rapes. And it is fucking sad, and it is disturbing, and it is dark. And it's very interesting to see how each of these men react differently. Some men obviously go into a deep depression. Some men are very much like, well, I'm not going to let her fucking win. Like, fuck that bitch. And they get aggressive about it. Some don't want to live anymore, which is fair enough. I don't know how to explain this book because I don't know if I could really recommend this to anyone. Like, how do you recommend a book that is all about rape, you know? It's just, I think it's really well done. I think it's very interesting. I think the formatting, makes it feel a bit more real. And yeah, this book, it kind of like fascinates me and disgusts me in equal measure. If you like disturbing shit, I would say you definitely pick this up because it is fucking disturbing. Like, it is absolutely disturbing. And like I said, I had forgotten about the last victim we follow. There is a scene in this book that is notorious. I don't really want to... Basically, it has to do with a cat. If you've read this book, you'll know. If you haven't read this book, like, it's a whole thing that happens with a cat. Like, a legitimate, like, cat. And that's always the part that I think people describe as the most disturbing element of this book. However, the final victim coming forward, to me, was the most disturbing part. Because there is one line, and it fucks me up. Just thinking about it, it fucks me up. So, if you've read this book, I would be very interested in discussing it in the comments, because, yeah, this book, what the fuck do you say about this book? Other than it's fucked, and it's so well written, and it's disturbing. So, with that being said, let's move into the first book I read this month. I think this book, like, don't hold this against me because I haven't decided yet. This book, the first book I read in November, might be not only my favorite book of the month, it might be my favorite book of the year. And it's crazy because I do not see anyone talking about this book. How did this book get published without people talking about it? Let's just discuss it. Is Violent Delights by Micah Nemerova. This book was just, you know what? This book gave me what I've been searching for since I first started Little Life. Except this is a little bit more thrillery and a little bit more mysterious, but still, it just gave me the vibes. We are following two teenage boys in this book, Julian and Paul, and this entire book is just about their relationship, the dynamic in their relationship, how they interact with each other and talk to each other and treat each other. And that might sound so fucking boring to people, but I don't even know, how long is this book, like 500 pages? Yeah, for about 500 pages, I was just so ingrained in these boys' lives and their thoughts and their families and the ways that they are willing to prove how much they love each other. it's just, I don't know how to explain how good this book is, because like I said, there's not really much of a plot. Like, okay, kind of a spoiler, but not really, because you see it in the first chapter, like in the preface. In the preface, it's kind of very heavily implied that Paul and Julian, our two main characters, have drugged a man and are intending to kill him. And you go back in time and you read the entire book to get to the point of how the fuck did they drug a random dude with the intentions of murder? Like, how did we get to this point? But that's not even really the plot, because the plot is just seeing these two boys interact. Like, let me just find, like, the quote that made me realize I was going to fucking love this book. Okay, this isn't the first quote that I highlighted that I realized, like, holy shit, this book is beautiful. But this was the first line where I was like, how do people come up with this shit? I'm just gonna read this paragraph. Just close your eyes. I'll read it slow so you can really ingest it, okay? But when they were alone, he could promise himself that he and Julian were each other's birthright, and that the only unnatural thing was the fact that their blood was divided between two bodies. He could believe that even calling it sex was inaccurate, because it wasn't about anything so shallow as physical desire. They wanted each other in the way of flesh wanting to knit itself together over a wound. How? I genuinely, like, there are so many books I love this year, like this and The Song of Achilles. I'm just like, I don't know which one was better. Like, which one did I enjoy more? I don't know. I think maybe because this took me a week to get through. Like, I read this, like, gradually, day after day, coming home from work. But it's just so fucking beautiful. Like, any of the paragraphs I've highlighted, just, like, they make my heart soar. They make my heart soar. Okay, maybe not, like, not S-O-A-R. S-O-R-E. They make my heart ache. He wanted to tear through Julian's skin and map the shapes of liver and lungs, to memorize the path of every artery with his fingertips. He wanted to break Julian's body open and move inside it alongside him, rib cages interlaced around a single heart. There was an emptiness inside Paul that would take and would never stop taking. He should never have believed that Julian couldn't tell it was there. Like, these two boys are so fucking in love that they want to crawl into each other's skin, but then similarly, like, the fucking hatred, the disgust, the venom that these two spew at each other, it's like, this is the best type of toxic relationship. I have no other words. Like, and I'm gonna feel so stupid if anyone watches this video, reads this book based on my recommendation and doesn't like it. I will want to die. So how about you read it and enjoy it? Guys, I read so many books this month. This video is barely going to be edited because I have work tomorrow and I'm tired and I'm lazy. I hope you enjoyed it. I will maybe film a December TBR this weekend, but similarly, I also might not do that at all. I hope you guys have an amazing week though, and I will see you next time. Bye!